Can you guys all say Team Say on three? 1, 2, 3.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann. Welcome to Teen Say, where teens can have their say and adults can see where they're coming from. Today is a really important topic: the law, the courts. When a teen gets in trouble, when a college student gets in trouble, it's not the end of the world. So we're coming upon Easter. I don't know what your religious background is, but Jesus forgives. The courts, not so much. The police, when they pull you over, not so much. We're going to hear from Charlie Fife, a big criminal attorney in Colorado. He's going to tell us the do's and don'ts, what a teen or a college student does when they get pulled over. If they have drugs, if they're getting a DUI, if they have a bad headlight and they were speeding, if they're getting a reckless drive, what to do or what not to do. All right. So you're a busy guy. Hello, Charlie Fife. You are a big criminal defense attorney.
Yes, indeed.
Getting calls on a Saturday. What's going on? Somebody going to jail or what? DUI. What's your biggest thing? DUIs, drugs. What kind of?
Definitely DUIs, but people who get DUIs usually have other substance abuse issues, or and then just other criminal kinds of cases. So, yeah.
What's your? I mean, what is it? You are open 24 hours a day. They can reach you 24 hours a day on your website. So what does that mean? You call them back. So what's the majority? DUI, you said, right?
Yeah, that probably DUIs is my forte for sure.
Biggest weekend interrupter.
No, my clients get DUIs when they're happy and when they're sad, when things are good and when it's bad.
Okay.
So there's always a good reason to drink too much.
Right. Yeah, April is the month of, I loved this. Social media says it's the month to de-stress and be, aware of stress. And it's also the month not to drink as much. So how old are the majority of the DUIs that you get? Do they range? Not only teens and college students?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Honestly, probably middle-aged people, people in their 40s and 50s, but certainly plenty of people who are teenagers in high school and college and everywhere in between.
So college students and teens shouldn't feel bad that it's the adults as well?
Oh, definitely. Definitely, for sure.
So in my open, I said Jesus was forgiven this time, Easter time, but the courts and the police, not so much.
Well, there's a story in the Bible. I think this is really important to recognize. I mean, not only is it the foundation behind the First Amendment and the difference between state and secular and the religious, but there's a story in the Bible upon that, which that is based, and it's a story where people are trying to trick Jesus into committing treason, and Jesus said, "You render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and render unto God which is God's." And that is, I tell clients that you may have some things you need to repent of and things you need to change in your life, but I'm representing you between you and Caesar when we go to court.
Okay. And I always tell the teens, when they say they're bad and they're going to hell, I'm like, you're judging that by what, I said, it's not that bad. It's not the end of the world. You make mistakes, and, it's really sad. And I hate to open with this, but there was a firefighter's daughter who was straight A, great student, obviously straight A's, and good kid, got caught smoking cigarettes, not marijuana, cigarettes, got grounded, tried to reach her dad, who was a firefighter, who was on calls, left and right, busy day at the station. She kept calling. Well, she thought he was mad at her She thought she disappointed him so much, she committed suicide.
No.
There's no repenting from that. I mean, she was smoking cigarettes. He would have forgave her. He would have much rather have her in his life.
Tyler's family. All right. Is this mom and dad?
Yes, ma'am. Hello.
Wow, you've got a big crowd.
Yes, we do. Lots of people love Tyler.
Yeah, and that's what kids forget, and that's what adults forget. So.
Yes. Yeah, we do this every year, not only for our family, all the families, and hopefully the last of the families. That we're going to fix this problem together.
Any advice you want to give others?
Oh, just if you're feeling bad, if you're feeling depressed, down, confused, talk to somebody.
Get some help.
You know, get help, talk to somebody, don't try to hide it, because people are out there to help you.
Don't turn your head and walk away from somebody that looks like they could use a friend.
So that's a big thing too. I think parents, when their kids get arrested or their kids break the law, they feel like some parents are just so strict that they overdo the punishment, maybe even so more than the courts or the police that go nuts, you know, they kick them out, or they say they disappointed them forever, or they cut them out of money, or they do whatever. So do you run into a lot of that?
Yeah, and I mean, something that I counsel parents, and I had teenage kids that, you know, like to party, and I wasn't cool about that, but one of the things I said is you know, if I had to call at 3 a.m. to come pick you up so that you don't drive home, I will not punish you for that. You drive home drunk, that's a whole nother thing. But if you had something had something to drink, I don't approve of it, but you won't get it from me if I have to come get you, bring you home safe. Don't double up your mistake and drive home drunk.
Now at least they have Ubers. Back in the day,
Yeah.
I don't know, when I was young. So, and I remember a lot more fatal accidents when I was young.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I hope.
Yeah. No, there's. I was a child of the '70s when I went to high school, and there was at least one fatal accident that I remember that killed some of the kids in school.
Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah. So tell us, what do they do? They get pulled over for a DUI. What are the do's and don'ts?
Well, first of all, the police have to have a legal basis to pull you over. So, I mean, I would certainly caution anybody that's going to drink and subsequently drive a car is, don't speed and use your blinker, stop completely at the stop sign. Don't do anything that's going to cause the police to have reason to pull you over. Right. If you do get pulled over, the first thing they're going to be looking for is to smell alcohol. Alcohol actually has no odor. So what the officer is going to be smelling is the flavorings or the congeners that are in the alcoholic beverage. So something like beer may only have 3, 4, 5, 6% alcohol in it, but it's going to have a really strong odor because it's full of barley and hops and malt and things that have a very pungent smell. Ironically, drinking vodka, you probably aren't going to have much of an odor of an alcoholic beverage. Certainly, what I would do if you had something to drink is I'd roll down both windows, both your driver's window when you talk to the police officer and the passenger window, get a cross current. So, hopefully the wind is blowing out the passenger window and be a lot harder for the officer to smell the alcohol. At that point, you're going to have to give the officer your driver's license. That, commits you to staying there. That way you can't drive away. And then they'll, if they smell alcohol, they'll probably do more than issue a ticket for not using your blinker or whatever reason it is they pulled you over. Typically cops are out looking for folks who are drinking and driving, downtown or wherever it is people typically consume alcohol. And then they're, on a saturation patrol, they're trying to make as many stops as possible. So if you don't use your blinker and they pull you over, They don't smell any alcohol, they'll probably just give you a warning and let you go home. If they smell alcohol, then they've got their quota met, and they're gonna bring you through the ringer.
So what happens? What's the officer going to do if he smells alcohol? He's going to ask him to get out of the car.
Yep, they're going to ask you to get out of the car. Probably what they'll do is they'll call for backup
Oh.
because they want to have a second police officer out there to make sure that if somebody starts getting chippy, that they got some muscle behind them, and especially if they think they're going to be putting somebody under arrest, if they're going to be resisting arrest, they want to have some extra muscle there to make sure that you're going to be the loser on that end. I would certainly caution anybody, do not resist arrest. Do not, police may do stuff wrong out there. You're not going to settle it in the street. You can settle it in court, but do not resist arrest. You will get hurt. Or a police officer might get hurt, and then you're even way more trouble if a police officer gets hurt. You just keep track of what's going on, remember what happened, be able to tell your lawyer about it, but do not try to settle anything in the street. You will come out the loser physically and legally.
So is there a test? So they'll use a breathalyzer or a blood test? What will they do?
Well, typically what they'll do is they'll ask you to do a series of voluntary roadside sobriety maneuvers. Those roadside sobriety maneuvers are, if they're properly trained, will be roadside sobriety maneuvers that have been approved by the National Highway Safety Administration. They usually consist of a battery of 3 tests. One will be what's called a horizontal gaze nystagmus maneuver. It's a neurological test. Ethyl alcohol is a central nervous system depressant, and it will cause nystagmus in the eyes. And so nystagmus, what that is just an involuntary jerking of the eyes. And so instead of if you think of your eyes as like a marble, and if if you're sober, they'll roll like a marble would roll on a smooth surface. If you have alcohol in your system or another central nervous system depressant, then your eyes will move kind of like it was on sandpaper. So it won't be a smooth rolling motion. That is certainly the most accurate of any of the other tests, and it's usually the first one they do. And I will guarantee you that if you show nystagmus on the first test, now they may have you do other tests after that, but all those tests are for show. Juries oftentimes don't really understand nystagmus and what it means, but police officers, if they know what they're doing, know what it means. And if you have nystagmus, you're probably going to get arrested. I would note that there are some people who will have nystagmus naturally, and those individuals may be absolutely sober and still get arrested, but that might be 2 or 3% of the population. The other 2 tests are a walk and turn maneuver, where
Let's go back.
The next 2 tests.
So would that be like ADHD or tired or just like a cross-eyed kind of thing happening? What would that be if they were showing signs of that?
Well, it would typically be a neurological problem. Okay. It wouldn't be like ADHD. I mean, if you were taking, some prescription medicines would cause nystagmus, especially if they were central nervous system depressants like an opioid, that they would cause nystagmus too. I would just note that in my state of Colorado, it absolutely makes no difference whether or not you are under the influence of alcohol or a prescription drug that you're taking as prescribed. If it impairs your ability to drive, that is not a defense.
Okay. And what about if they're just tired? And I mean, they say that being tired can appear like a person is drunk when they're driving because they're like fading in and out, and they're swerving.
Well, that's right. And actually, being super tired can cause nystagmus as well, as can other things. The police officer's emergency lights being on. So if the strobe lights are on and they're flashing in your face, and the officer's doing the nystagmus test, that can cause nystagmus, or at least for your eyes to appear to have nystagmus. The police officer, if they do that test right, is required to turn off his strobe lights, so that they're not flashing in your eyes, because that will cause nystagmus, or at the very least cause the police officer to think he's seeing nystagmus when he's not.
Now, if let's say a teen or a college student knows this and they ask them to shut the lights, that could be considered disrespectful, or it could annoy the officer too.
Yeah, no doubt. My advice would be, don't tell the cop what to do, because I think you're right. It would just cause him to, they'd hold it against you for sure. At the same time, if the strobe lights are on, that's something you can tell your lawyer, make sure he knows that, he or she knows that. And a lot of states, Colorado is certainly one of these states. In Colorado, the police officers are required to wear body cam video. So if a police officer is making a mistake on the roadside sobriety maneuvers, I get to see it. And if the case goes to trial, a jury gets to see it. And so it's really important that your lawyer not only knows the law, but actually knows the forensics behind a DUI.
So what are the other tests?
The other two tests are those two tests. It's the walk and turn maneuver and the one leg stand maneuver. Those two tests are what are called divided attention maneuvers. Divided attention is something that requires you to do two things at once, something physical and something mental at the same time. Driving is a divided attention task. It requires you to observe what's going on around you, the traffic, the other circumstances related to driving, and to then be able to react to that. So something physical and mental. And so the walk and turn maneuver, for example, is a divided attention task, because the first thing that they do is they put you into what's called the instruction phase. The instruction phase, they'll require you to put one foot in front of the other, which, by the way, will reduce your balance base to the width of your foot. So if you think about it, I mean, the wider the balance base, whether or not that's a chair or a stool or anything, the wider the balance base, the greater the balance. So if you're standing there with your feet a foot and a half apart, you're going to have a much better balance base than if your feet are together, heel to heel, toe to toe, which is going to reduce your balance base, which is exactly the point that they're trying to do, put you in an awkward position and then see how your balance is. But then with a walk and turn, they do something even more than that, is they'll have you put one foot in front of the other and then hold that position while the police officer gives you the rest of the instructions. So it's requiring you to do something physical, i.e. hold your balance in a very precarious manner with your arms down to your side, which, again, arms down to your side means that you can't use your arms to steady yourself. And then to hold that position while the police officer explains the rest of the maneuver, which requires you to remember something mental, remember the rest of the instructions while he explains them to you, and then should show them to you as well and demonstrate them himself. And then when he gets done explaining, and again, you're in this, precarious position, instructional position, then remember that and then do the rest of the maneuver, which requires you to take 9 heel to toe steps forward, do a turn as they describe, and then heel to toe back without stopping, without missing heel to toe, without raising your arms, without stepping off the line, which is usually an imaginary line, not an actual stripe, unless there is a stripe there where you're doing them. Do the turn as instructed, and if you figure that, if you think about it, so there's really about 93 things you have to be able to do correctly. And just missing two of them is going to be a fail as far as the police officer is concerned. I'll guarantee you could get 50 sober people in a room, and half of them are going to fail that maneuver. It's not really a very fair test. I mean, I've seen people pass it before. I've got a few clients that could pass that, even if they were above the legal limit. But that's a tough test to do.
So let's talk about the legal limit. So in every state it varies, right?
Yeah, it does. But during the Clinton administration, Bill Clinton basically, by threatening to withhold highway funds to states, required them to lower their driving under the influence level down to 0.08. And so, frankly, I think every state has 0.08 as a driving under the influence is the legal limit for driving under the influence in every state now. Some states will, like I know Utah, for example, has lowered theirs to an 0.05. Okay. And in Colorado, we have what's called a driving while ability impaired. Other states have that as well. I know, for example, New York does as well. And that, so driving under the influence in Colorado is described as that your ability to drive is substantially impaired by the consumption of alcohol. Whereas driving while ability impaired means that your ability to drive is impaired to the slightest degree, which basically means any impairment whatsoever. The legal limit, or the presumptive level in Colorado for impaired, is 0.05. So a lot of times some people get a DUI, the DA will offer you driving while ability impaired as a plea bargain. So plea bargain it down from being substantially impaired to the slightest degree. That would be a typical plea bargain in the state of Colorado. But in Colorado, the legal limit really is a 0.05.
So how much alcohol is that? Like a 0.05? Is that a beer, 5 beers? One drink?
Well, I would caution a client not to have more than 2 beers and drive.
What about?
And when I say in a beer, I'm talking about a 12-ounce regular, 4% beer. If you're drinking an IPA or something that has 8 or 9% alcohol and it's 16 ounces, that's probably going to put you over the limit by itself.
Gotcha. And what about like vodka and cranberry juice? How many of those? If they were using one shot glasses, which we know teens just like, and college students, they don't really use a glass. They just pour it.
Well, one ounce of 80 proof liquor would be the equivalent of 12 ounces of 4% beer, which would equal about 4 ounces of wine. Good. So 8 ounces of wine, I'd say you probably ought not to drive anymore. More than 2 1-ounce shots, I'd say you're going to have some trouble with the law. More than 2 beers, and those are 12-ounce regular beers, not your fancy brewery beers that have a lot more alcohol in them.
So what happens? So they are drunk. They are dumb enough to drive drunk instead of calling an Uber, because today they have no excuse. They can get an Uber. So let's say they drive drunk and they get arrested. Now what? Are they spending the night, or are they able to call you and get out that night, or what? Do they look up attorneys? How does it work?
Well, it's going to vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, certainly from state to state. Here in Colorado, half the time they'll let you out on a summons on a first offense. If it's a second offense, they're going to hold you in jail, and you'll have to bond out. either with cash money or perhaps a PR bond, a personal recognizance bond, but you probably spend the night in jail. Um, and then, when you get out, you'll need to, hire a lawyer. I would certainly encourage anybody to hire a lawyer. If you can't afford a lawyer, I'd certainly get a public defender. Public defenders are usually, I think they get a bad rap a lot of times. Certainly if they're fabulous lawyers, they end up going out into, private practice, unless they're real true believers, and then they'll stay in the PD's office. But usually they're really, really good public defenders, at least in Colorado, end up doing the death penalty cases and those types of cases.
Wow.
So, but I'd still get a public defender. They're sure as hell better lawyer than you are.
Right. So what other, so back to the question. So what would they do? They would have a choice to call you, call a parent or call an attorney. I mean, how would they know what to do if they were pulled over? Would they get told what to do?
Well, the first thing that most people are doing is trying to get home and take a shower and figure out what they're going to do. Typically I'll get a call from somebody, 2 or 3 days after they got their DUI. Occasionally I'll get a call, from a former client saying, I got pulled over again. Should I do the roadside? Should I take a test? Should I refuse? What should I do? And, I can give them some advice on that. But, there's nothing I'm going to be able to do for them except tell them to get a bondsman and get out.
Okay. I guess then they'll be told what to do by the police officer. Like, you can call your mom, or you can call a friend, or you can get somebody to post a bond, that kind of thing.
Right. They'll let you know. I mean, the jail wants you out of there as much as you want to get out of there usually.
Real quick, I just want to hear about college students and alcohol and all the parties. Can you give us some feedback?
Yeah, of course. So, parties in college. A lot of people think college is just partying and studying, and that's it. And what happens at parties is alcohol, which it's not all about alcohol. You can have so much fun on a Friday night at a party with all your friends without alcohol. Take for instance, I don't drink, and I love soda and candy. So I get hyped up on soda and candy right before a party, while some of my friends, of course, are taking shots. But by the end of the night, who is the one actually passed out? Not me. I'm remembering everything. I love it. I wake up, I'm fine, ready to party the next day. Other people are like, I need a day to recover. I need a little sleep and everything. I'm ready to go on a run in the morning, have some fun again that night. But the sad thing is, at parties, around 1, when they start going down, it's when you see people start passing out, and all my friends are either throwing up, sitting on a couch, or going home with guys. Unfortunately, I have to be that person to step in and be like, hey, I know you don't want to do this, and in the morning you'll regret it. And a lot of them thank me every day. They love it that I'm there for them and everything. But I have to be that sober friend to look out for them. It's not always fun, but it's always the right thing to do. I know it.
So how come you don't drink?
It's just not fun. I mean, I have nothing against it. I don't judge people that do it. I know some people say it's a lot of fun, but the way people look at the end of the night when they're trashed, they literally look trashed.
Yeah.
So I don't think alcohol is that cute, and it's not something I want to put in my body this young.
You're an athlete, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I run every morning. I love working out. I live in the gym. I work at the gym.
Okay. Well, great. So any advice for future high school students, like, should they tell people they don't drink and hold their own, or should they just walk around and have a sugar high and have a Gatorade bottle in their hand? And
I think it's not anyone's business if you drink or not, and I don't think you should be judged on that. And I will actually bring one of my friends to the parties, and they're gonna make me drink this and like that. I'm like, no, just hold a drink and act like you are drinking. Don't act wild and fun, but you can control yourself because you are actually sober. So it's perfect. And you can walk around with a Gatorade bottle, Solo cup or something, or water bottle, and just say, oh, I got enough, thanks, and just wobble off.
wobble off.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for talking to us.
Course.
So, okay, what about drunk on campus? Can they be arrested for that, walking around drunk or drugged?
Yes. Yeah, it's called public intoxication for sure.
Okay. What happens?
Absolutely.
Same thing?
Well, and that'd probably be just that'd just probably be a misdemeanor, and they'll take you to jail until you sober up. Might take you to detox till you sober up. If somebody, if somebody's doped up, they probably have some dope on them, and if they had some, fentanyl or heroin or cocaine on them, they're probably going to have other charges besides that. Besides just being high in public, that probably have a possession of a controlled substance kind of charge. Different states are treating that differently. I know that's a hot potato politically. Whether or not we treat drugs as a health problem versus a criminal problem. California, increasingly Colorado would treat it more as a health problem. I have my own opinions about that, but it's
marijuana, right?
Marijuana is legal here in Colorado. They treat that the same as just drinking too much beer and walking around campus.
They still can't drive on.
Oh no, in Colorado, absolutely not. They treat driving under the influence of marijuana just the same as they do Colorado. Colorado has its limit. It's 5 nanograms, which is not very much marijuana at all. In fact, somebody who smokes marijuana every day is going to be above 5 nanograms when they wake up in the morning.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's crazy. Okay, but they'll still need to lawyer up. And what other criminal cases do you see that you want to advise or give advice to kids, parents?
Well, one thing I would probably advise you to do, no matter what, is if you're if you get caught or if you get pulled over and they ask you to do roadside sobriety maneuvers, drunk or sober, I would decline them. You're going to get arrested either way, and so if you're there's just really no reason to do those roadsides. You're going to get arrested either way, and you're going to be spending some time down at the jail. If you're sober, I certainly would take a breath or a blood test. If you're sober, I would choose a blood test over a breath test, just because there's a lot of things that can go wrong with a breath test that where an innocent person could get into trouble when they really were innocent. So I do a blood test. Furthermore, you can have an independent laboratory do a retest on your blood. So even if the state's lab said you were under the influence, that sample can be reanalyzed. And then of course you can refuse. If you do refuse, the fact that you refuse can be used against you. And a jury can a prosecutor can certainly argue that refusing is consciousness of guilt and try to get a conviction even with a refusal. If you're going to refuse, I'd refuse smart in a way that doesn't really look like a refusal, like I want to speak with my lawyer to know which is the most accurate test. That's a refusal. No, the jury won't see it that way.
Right. And what if the police officer gets aggressive if they refuse? What do they
Well, I mean, you do have a right to refuse a test. I mean, if they tell you you absolutely have to take a test, like we're going to beat you up otherwise, I'd take a test and then argue that's not a voluntary test. The United States Supreme Court has said that a blood or a breath test is a search under the Fourth Amendment. It's a search. The Fourth Amendment protects you and me from a warrantless search and seizure. Well, if you're under arrest, you're seized under the Fourth Amendment. And there's probably nothing more invasive in a search than to have a needle stuck in your arm and have your bodily fluids withdrawn from it. If anything is a search, that's it. And then have, what is your genome as well as every other private part of your body taken to a laboratory to have its, the blood alcohol level tested. That is a protected under the Fourth Amendment. So if you refuse a test, conceivably they could go get a search warrant from a judge and have your blood drawn involuntarily. That is possible. Certainly, they do that in Colorado, and get a search warrant to draw your blood without your consent. But most states have an implied consent or expressed consent law, which is there to encourage drivers to consent voluntarily to a search with the penalty of having your driver's license suspended or taken away from you if you refuse to take a test. So refusing to take a test can certainly come with a penalty that is significant, losing your driver's license. But you do have a right to refuse a chemical test in the United States unless there's a search warrant that is issued by a judge.
So what about the kids? Okay, so first question, they're going to do a blood test on the side of the road? No.
No, they'll arrest you, take you to the hospital or the police station or the firehouse or someplace where there's a EMT or a nurse that can draw your blood.
Okay.
It's extremely unlikely that the police officer, in addition to being a police officer, is a certified licensed phlebotomist or nurse. So, it requires a medical professional to draw your blood legally.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And what about the kid next to them? Like if there's a kid next to them that's intoxicated, can that kid be arrested for anything?
Well, if he's underage, sure, they can be charged with minor in possession or.
What if they're not underage?
Well, if they're not underage, then
They can be intoxicated.
well, there's nothing. Well, no, you're not publicly intoxicated. You're in a car. They might have to figure out how the hell they're going to get you home safe, but being a drunk in the passenger seat isn't a crime. I mean, they might run you for warrants, see if you got any warrants before they let you go home. But having your drunk in the passenger seat or the rear seat's not a crime.
What about if they have an open bottle?
That would get attributed to the driver.
Oh.
So a driver is not allowed to have an open container in a vehicle.
Wow. Okay. So he would be charged for that, or she.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And that's a different charge, totally.
Totally.
Okay. Wow. Okay. A lot to learn. But it's not the end of the world, right? How many DUIs would you say you've done?
In 37 years, over 10,000.
Wow.
And I probably tried 2,000.
Okay. And how many would you say? I mean, do you keep track?
Let me think that one through.
Okay.
I've probably tried 1,500 between juries and a trial to the court.
Okay. And I mean, they shouldn't think it's the end of the world because obviously it's a bad thing. But I mean, they'll survive. They'll move on.
Well, this is what I think.
Yeah.
And my opinions have certainly evolved over 37 years, and I certainly see things differently than I did when I first started doing this in my late 20s. Alcohol is a drug, and alcohol. The only difference between alcohol and the illegal drugs is that alcohol kills more people than all the illegal drugs put together. If you get a DUI, probably part of the penalty is going to be that you can't drink for some period of time or on probation. And I know people bitch and moan about that and say, that's not fair, and what the hell? I think it's a great idea to look at it even on the positive side and just figure out your relationship with alcohol. There's 10% of the children God made can't safely drink alcohol, and that's just the way it is. And they're going to keep getting in trouble all the time with alcohol. If they have one drink, the difference between a temperate drinker and a non-temperate drinker. A temperate drinker has a couple of drinks and their body says, okay, you've had enough. It's time to go home, time to go to bed. An alcoholic drinker has a couple of drinks and they're ready to go to town. All right. It's just the opposite. It's like alcohol for them is like a stimulant. It's like cocaine is for other people. It's a stimulant. And also, it's really easy, especially if you're, have a high stress kind of job like I do, it's really easy to get into the habit of having a couple of drinks every night just to wind down. You don't drink alcoholically, but you drink, you're using alcohol to modulate your moods and that sort of thing. It might not kill you, but it could take a couple of years off your life. But I think it's really good to just check your relationship with alcohol. And is this something that is alcohol, benefiting my life or is it adversely affecting my life? And I think that's just a really good thing, and it's with any relationship. If you're going out with a girl and you're not really sure if she's the right girl, then quit seeing her, right? Just quit seeing her for a while. Is your life better not seeing her or worse? If it's worse, then go back, right? If it's better, then, it's time to move on. We have relationships with lots of things and lots of people. So it gives you a chance to look at that situation and see whether or not that is a good situation for you. I've never had a DUI, but I tried that experiment on myself years ago and decided, you know what, my life's better without alcohol. I don't drink. That isn't to say I didn't drink plenty before, but I just decided, alcohol does not benefit my life in any way. And frankly, it was the best decision I ever made to quit drinking. Sleep better, work better, think better, everything better without it. So that's just me. That's not to say I have any problem with people who drink. I got no quarrel with it at all. If it's getting you in trouble, if it's landing you up in jail, if it's, putting you in the divorce courthouse with unemployment line, you might want to think it over again.
Right. For sure. Well, you see, even for the stay-home moms or just moms, I used to see on Facebook all the time, they had those giant glasses, that moms were having, like after the kids went to bed, like a giant glass of wine, and I mean, if they're drinking wine every night, they're doing something wrong in motherhood if they need that wine. That's just my opinion. I mean, I used to see certain women at the swim meets with those juice boxes that are wine. And I'm like, are you kidding? You need a wine thing to sit at a swim meet? This is fun. This is, So I did something way back when I had one of my kids do this little thing. Why not get sugar high instead of drunk or drug high, and eat a lot of candy or whatever, drink a lot of soda when you go out. Diet Coke. When I was doing that doctor show, the doctor said, I'm really tired, I don't think I could do this show today. I said, oh, drink a Diet Coke, you'll be wide awake. I mean, he said, wow, this stuff should be legal. Like his heart was going, he was wide awake. I mean, that's a certain high. Drinking espresso, a couple of espressos. I mean, who's going to dance better and be more talkative? Caffeined out or sugared out. The one drunk is slurring their words, falling on the floor, making a scene. So that was always I always drank Diet Coke when I was young and danced and didn't have a hangover, could go shopping at the flea markets in New York, while everybody else was really in trouble throwing up and having a terrible headache and hangover. So that's my take on it. So what about other things like, unfortunately, oh my gosh. So cocaine in the workforce, I hear, is big now. I don't know why, but so do you get a lot of cocaine charges? Is that
No, I get a lot of drug cases for sure. Colorado has the only drug that is a felony. If you have a user quantity of a controlled substance in Colorado, that's going to be a misdemeanor unless it's fentanyl, and fentanyl, we just look at that differently because of the fact that it's killing so many people. And but cocaine, at least in Colorado, a user quantity of that would be a misdemeanor. And certainly Colorado looks at that much more as an addiction issue, and put you in a drug court or something like that to try to help you to, stay clean. That's the way Colorado deals with that. I think I have mixed feelings about that, but that's the way Colorado deals with it.
Like, what if it's their first time? They decide to be stupid and eat a bunch of gummies and go out in public or drive, or they do cocaine or they do some kind of drug, and it's their first time. They have to be labeled like they have a problem, and like.
Well, in Colorado, there's a big difference between being in a hotel room smoking crack, which is going to be a misdemeanor, as opposed to, being in a car smoking crack, right? And I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you're smoking crack in a hotel room, you're certainly doing a lot of damage to yourself. You're doing a lot of damage to your own brain and your own body, and your, that sort of thing. But you're not going to be crashing your car into, a mother driving her kids to school, right? And so, I mean, whether or not smoking crack in a hotel room is a victimless crime or not, I know we could debate that for, hours on end, but I don't think there's any question that, being, coked up or liquored up or whatever, driving a car is a completely different situation. That is not a victimless crime. It's not. That doesn't mean, I'm not going to defend you like, with zealously with every, fiber of my sworn duty as a defense attorney. But, when good people in the legislature write laws that say, they usually can distinguish between what is a victimless crime and what is not a victimless crime. And driving under the influence is sure as hell not a victimless crime.
I should have told you in the beginning, my first dad passed away because he was hit by a drunk driver. So at 4 in New York.
It's not a victimless crime. I've got people in my family that were killed by drunk drivers, and I've got very good friends who've died that way. It's it's a tragedy, and it's not a preventable tragedy.
Right. Well, it's preventable if other people don't drive and run into them, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it is a crime that can be prevented either by the people who decide to get an Uber, or prevented because we're going to throw your ass in jail as a society for doing it.
And do you handle cases about fighting and all of that? Have you gotten
Oh, sure.
that?
Yeah. Yes, I've represented lots of people for that sort of thing as well. Um, you know,
Temper management? No, I don't know.
well, usually alcohol has something to do with it, and certainly well, what most of the time, the vast majority of the time, whether or not it's domestic violence, barroom fight, fight at the dorm, whatever, is I would say at least 95% of the time there's alcohol involved. Alcohol, brings the worst out in people.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I have had plenty of domestic violence situations and, people getting into a fight where, there wasn't alcohol involved, you know, girlfriend sees boyfriend with another girl and, all of a sudden there's somebody pulling somebody's hair out or, people taking swings, but, typically there's alcohol involved.
I did hear a story like that where a girl went up and punched somebody in the face, one of the guys at a dance because he was with another girl, like 3 times before other people like took her off him. And she was kicked out of the sorority dance or whatever dance for fraternity, sorority, I don't know. But literally attacked him, and everybody was like, "Press charges!" And the guy was like, "No, no, I can't go to court and say I got beat up by a girl." And they were like, what? But it does happen. It really does.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, girls that get cheated on, what Miranda Lambert song, they're hitting things over the car and wrecking the car. I mean, and those girls aren't intoxicated, they're just angry. So you represent them too?
Oh, goodness sakes. I've represented people doing everything you can think of. The wife sees husband's car parked where she was certain he was doing something he wasn't supposed to, and she gets out a crowbar and takes out all of his windshields and headlights and smashes the car to hell. I've seen the wife do the same, the husband do the same thing. Goodness sakes, we're passionate people, and passionate people do stupid things sometimes.
And that's why you're in business. So you don't judge them, you help them get off. And there's always something you can do to make their life not be over.
Okay, we're standing in front of the Fairfax County Government Center. My first introduction to official Fairfax County building other than high school, I was dropped off in the back of a police car for visiting another high school after hours. And what I want to point out is that was when I was 17. I'm 62 now. Wow. I've since had other stuff. For your audience, every day there will be another day. Whatever's going on in your head, it is not the end of the world. And there's so many ways you can make it worse. I looked at the statistics. There's 40,000 suicides a year. There's over 30,000 alcohol-induced liver deaths. There's over 30,000 unintentional drug overdoses. Those are all bad choices. Whatever's happening right now in a life, my arrest took place over 50 years ago. I'm still standing here. I retired as an officer in the Air Force, worked in the Pentagon, flew bombers. My last flight on a B-52 was a nonstop around the world. Wow. Whatever the helmet fire that's going on right now, it's a short thing. It's what you do. Where you visualize yourself afterwards and what you do to come out.
And that going back to what I initially said, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, render unto God which is God's. If you make a mistake, right, and you make a mistake, then learn from it. I mean, that's the whole point of it. We all make mistakes. I can tell you stories of so many people who were addicts, people who were completely down and out, people that you thought were just their life was going to go nowhere, and they picked themselves up. They recognized I got a problem. They quit drinking, quit using, quit doing what the hell they were doing, and they go to school, get in the military, do what they need to do, and they get out and they've lived fabulously successful lives. I mean, I have to be careful what stories I tell, because I never tell stories about clients because of attorney-client privilege. But I mean, I know a guy who could have spent the rest of his life in prison, got out, went to a Christian college, got into Harvard Business School, works on Wall Street, makes millions of dollars a year, doing done so much, as far as set up foundations to give money to help people who were once like himself. I mean, I believe in redemption. I really do. And if you really think about what Easter means, it's not just about Jesus coming back to life. It's about ourselves, bringing ourselves back, from the abyss and into a new life. And you call that Christianity, and or call it what you will. I don't think it has to be in a Christian context. It can be in just about any context. But most of the vast majority of us are really good people, and usually 98% of the people I represent commit crimes of weakness. Only maybe 2% are crimes of malice. And of that 98% of there's redemption, and it's just a matter of rendering unto God, which is God's, and that's the part you got to do. I can't do that for you as a lawyer. I can help you with Caesar, but as far as getting your life straight, that's between you and your higher power. And there is a higher power. I know that. I know that because I've experienced it in my own life. And you're better than the worst thing you ever did. That's for sure.
I love that. I picked the right attorney to interview.